What does it take to go from being a second-generation roofer, hesitant to join the roofing industry, to building a company ranked as one of the top roofing businesses in Pasadena, California? All in just 3 years. In this episode of the Roofing Success Podcast, we sit down with David Reyes, owner of Green Ladder Roofing, to uncover the secrets behind his rapid success. From leveraging grassroots branding to mastering social media and streamlining operations, David shares how he turned every challenge into a thriving business model. David's journey is one of resilience and ingenuity. A former political science major turned roofing entrepreneur, he's combined his deep understanding of community engagement with a fresh take on modern branding strategies to carve out a niche in a competitive California roofing market. What sets David apart isn't just his results, it's his relentless focus on collaboration and his ability to adapt to rapidly changing demands of the roofing industry. Whether it's building trust with homeowners through glowing reviews or navigating the leap from residential to commercial projects, David's insights are both inspiring and actionable. In today's episode, you'll learn how to brand yourself effectively, overcome common pitfalls from the subcontracting side, and create a scalable business model. Let's dive into this dynamic conversation with David Reyes of Green Ladder Roofing. Welcome to the Roofing Success Podcast. I'm Jim Aline, and I'm here to bring you insights from top leaders in the roofing industry to help you grow and scale your roofing business. David Reyes with Green Ladder Roofing. How you doing today, man?
Good, sir. How about yourself? How's everything?
Good, man.
Yeah.
I don't get a lot of roofing contractors out of California on the show. So,
is that a good
you're my
thing?
people, right? I'm from there, you know what I mean? But I don't know what it is. I guess it's, maybe there's more roofers in the storm markets than there are in the, in the retail markets of California and things like that. But man, how's life in Cali?
Life is good. Life is good. I can't complain. Weather's always perfect in the way, but as a roofer, you always want that rain as a roofer.
That's right. Yeah. Well, we should talk about that, man. Like being a roofing contractor in the, greater Los Angeles area, with good weather most of the time, that must be a challenge at different periods. Yeah. How did you, let's start with a little bit about how you got into roofing, your company and things like that.
Sure. Yeah. So I've been in the industry about 12 years now. I'm a second generation roofer. My dad was a roofer and dragged me into the industry. Like everybody gets dragged into it. I worked my way through high school and college. And, honestly, I didn't want to be in the industry at all. Like everybody, it's just something that out of necessity, out of opportunity. Yeah. The roofing industry does have a lot of opportunity. Eventually I learned to love it. And once that just snapped in my head where I'm working these summers, I'm working these years, I might as well take something out of this. And I started being curious. And I think that curiosity opened the doors to listening to podcasts like roofing podcasts or listening to podcasts like this that kind of was the gateway to the behind the scenes. Because when you're like so focused on just the roof work, you get sort of like, I don't know, you feel claustrophobic, you feel like you're not going to go anywhere. Like you're just another guy working on the roof. And so seeing the back end of the industry made me fall in love with the industry.
Yeah, the business side, right? Like there's the roofing and then there's the business, that's right? Like, it really is a much different, and the business side is where that opportunity is like, or a lot, right. The greater opportunity is. So is that what made you fall in love with it? What'd you go to school for? What'd you go to college for and things like that?
I went to school. That's funny. I went to school for business school and I got dropped from business school. Wasn't fit to do business. It was just because it's a test based system, So I tell people like you don't need to go to college to be a successful owner in anything, business owner. So I went to school for business, ended up settling for political science major. I graduated and I actually ended up working in local government. So I ended up helping a congressman I eventually went to my local government and started doing like council member work, working for council members, like kind of like liaison work. Um, but ended up back into the roofing industry. Um, my dad's boss, my dad still works for a different company right now. And he's a good man. He's been treating my dad and my family good for years. And he gave me an opportunity to work in the office once I graduated. I did that for a little bit. And I ended up parting ways because I had an opportunity to become a project manager somewhere else, closer to home. Was tired of that 2 hour commute to their office.
Isn't that like three exits down the 10
Yeah, in low terms, it's like 3 miles down. And I've been in the industry ever since. Meeting people like you continues to tell me I'm in the right place.
Yeah, man.
And
It's
so,
fun.
been trying to get as more involved in the industry as possible. Ever since then, ever like 10 years ago, I started going to expos and all that before they were cool. And I feel like now it's like, if you're not going to these things, then you're not part of you're not part of the movement. Like you got to get involved. You got to get, have a collaboration like this. And it's funny you mentioned that you haven't talked to a lot of California roofers. For some reason, I feel like California roofers are a little bit more distant from each other. Like they don't like to
Yeah.
talk to anybody. I ended up going to a couple of other expos and conferences near Florida, near like closer to your guys' end over there. And they're so open to collaboration. They're so open to sitting down and like talking shop or talking about softwares they're using. And I was like, roofers on that end are much more tech savvy and they're more willing to collaborate. So I can see why it's such a big difference in business structure. Like
Why do you think that is? Because Cali's that's the tech hub, right? Like, I mean,
Yeah.
especially Northern California. Like, what do you think the disconnect is?
I think it might be the out here it's the scarcity of work. So people don't want to talk their tips and trades secrets. Because out here it's like you have to brand yourself before you can even get work. I feel like I don't know the store model too much, but out there it's like there's so much work. You it's whoever gets there first and makes that first connection. So I feel like it might be a little different out there. You guys have to mass produce, track it, and then properly collect. Out here, it's like you have to brand yourself first. Like you're not going to compete if you're not Googleable, if you're not on Google, if you're not rated at least 4 stars or above. If you don't have an Instagram, it becomes that mindset of like contractors are sketchy. So you need to have a presence, have that pulse in the internet. And so Cali roofing is like you have to have a brand behind it. So
How did you go about going about branding first? What was your philosophy? What were the steps you took along that route?
So we definitely focus on our local city first. Like we grassrooted in our city. We got involved with like Chamber of Commerce. We got involved with like community service. We connected with a lot of other business owners, different industries, but also maybe some people that can be service partners to us. So like storm restoration people that need to do the interior work, but they need the roof done first because that was the first cause. So they need us as much as we need them, and we kind of repurpose clients. We share clients. We make sure they're all taken care of. So it was that word of mouth, like that was the beginning base for us. I think as of last year, it was like 65% referral base. All our leads were 65% referrals. It gets to a certain point where like you do have to start advertising a little bit more, but it was only after the brand was cemented. I have like a theory. It was like if you spend money on ads without a backing of brands, they're gonna go back to your profile and be like, okay, this person has one post. Nah, I think it might be scammy. So you still have to
Yeah.
brand first before you start scaling with ads and marketing.
Yeah, there your online visibility and the things that the way that you look online
Mhm.
has a big impact. Hey, you should use this company. okay, cool. So let me search up Green Ladder online.
Yeah.
And oh man, that website looks like it was built in 1983. Like what's going on here? How come there's no phone number on it? Like what are you doing? Like,
Yeah.
or maybe they don't maybe they don't even exist online,
That's
right?
right.
And so
That's right.
that's great advice for people is to build that foundation.
Yeah.
The other thing I love there is that where I think there's a gap for a lot of contractors starting out in building relationships first.
Mm-hmm.
And it's like people want to rely on, I don't know what it is. Maybe it's a fear thing where you don't want to tell, you're not sure about your business or what you can, how well you can, well you can execute on your business. That's why you don't tell your friends, your family, your neighbors, go to these business meetings, go to these meetups. But man, I think that's a core foundation
Yeah.
that anyone can use. And how much did it cost you?
Startup.
Yeah, like all those like meeting people and telling people.
So the branding it's free. Like you can go out there and talk, and that's free. You can stand at the corner of the street and yell like, "Hey, this is who I am." It's free. Like that's free advertising. You're not spending money somewhere before your brand is cemented. So it's just going out there and just meeting people, making that connection. I used to say that I was like, I'm not a salesperson. I'm just a roofer, and I'm just and so like every time when I would go out and do roofs, like I would just talk about our story, and like I would get so in detailed with like information, like just information to the client, and that would ultimately sell the job. It wasn't because I was a pushy salesperson. It was just I was genuine about the information I wanted to teach them, and they kind of resorted to that. Eventually, I realized that I was never asking for the close sometimes, so that's why I was losing some jobs. So I had to realize, like, as an owner or as anybody, you're a salesperson regardless. There's different connotations to sales people, but you as a person branding yourself, you're a salesperson. You need to sell your brand. There's no other alternative to that. And so when I quickly realized I have to, this is selling. Like you and I, we're talking, we're convincing each other that we're good people. Our brand that we stand behind is also good.
And that's, but you got to ask for the close. But what I think the part of it is that people don't go into it as a learning experience.
Yeah.
Like if you and go, man, I went on 10 appointments and I sat down with 10 homeowners, and now, what? How come I didn't close as many as I thought I should?
That's right. Yeah.
What happened there? Like, oh, I forgot to even ask them for like if they would do business with me, right? Like there's like you can analyze the game tape, right? Like you can figure out what you've been doing, what you did wrong, and it's the continuous iteration of that, and getting better over and over, day after day, that really leads to success and with people, man.
And I think that's where people get lost because, like you said, that was a key word, the game tape. But the thing is that people don't know how to monitor the game tape. They don't know how to get the game tape even captured. And when I first started off, I was just going based off feeling, like, oh, this is how I felt at this appointment. Maybe I should do this next time. But if you start monitoring with like KPIs and just monitoring with conversions, you're like, okay, this is what worked. Let's stick to this. Besides emotions, like this is what's working. But some people, first starting off, it's so hard to measure because you're just throwing darts and blindly trying to hit something up until you get.
And you don't know what to measure a lot of times, right? Like, and I always like to say, around my household, we know that feelings aren't facts. So so we got to get to the facts, right? Like we got to get to the facts.
That's right.
And so, what are some of those key metrics that you've learned to measure along the way? And it could be in the sales process, through production, anything. Like,
Yeah.
what are some of the key metrics that
Mhm.
you're like, man, I'm glad we're measuring this now, and it's helped us.
So I think some of the most important stuff is on the front end, where it's like we get a phone call. How long does that phone ring for before someone picks up? And if someone does pick up, like what are they saying? And how from that call, how many get booked for inspection?
Mm,
Because we were realizing we were spending so much money on ads eventually. We're like, we're not getting as many appointments. So what's going on? Is it the quality of the leads, or is it not answering the phone properly and asking them like, hey, these are the days we have available? Because sometimes people are like, oh, we don't have that available. I'll call you back later. So maybe you just got to be a little bit like, is there anything else we can do? Like, how about Wednesday? We can be flexible this day. So measuring leads to booked inspections, that was
mm,
like a big game changer for us. Then we got to go into like the booked inspections to how many proposals did we get out in time? Because another rule of thumb now is like there's so much information out there, so many roofers in Cali. It's like if you wait 2-3 days, they're gone. Like they're with someone else already. And so it's like how fast did we get these proposals out in the beginning? And if we even got them out, because everything happens. When I was first starting off, you'd be so busy that man, I didn't send that proposal out. Like I completely forgot, and I'll be honest about it. It's just a part of life and part of scaling. Sometimes things start to drop, but that's where you have to be able to measure and be like, okay, this is where the leak's happening. As a roofer,
yeah,
metaphorically, and then as a business owner, like this is where the leak's
that's
happening.
right.
We have to patch this up or get a new roof, a new system on there.
And that allows you, like, just knowing, and sometimes you don't know what the right number should be, right? So
Right.
maybe on that,
That's
how
right.
many appointments got booked from these phone calls, right? Like,
Yeah.
I encourage people in the beginning, you won't know what that's supposed to be,
That's right. Yeah.
right?
Yeah.
Make a guess. And I think 50% of the people that call in, we book an appointment on.
Yeah.
And now you have something to measure against, and all of a sudden you're like, oh man, it seems to be like more like 70%. Cool, we adjust our metric and now we're measuring off of that, right?
That's right.
um,
That's right. And
with proposals out, that's a very it so you have speed to lead, but then
yeah,
that speed to estimate is probably another very important factor in the
yeah,
decision-making process.
yeah.
I could see that from a homeowner perspective. Man, if I'm sitting around wondering, man, did David send us that yet? Did we get that? Hey, honey, did we get that proposal from David yet? Right? Like if that's happening,
Yep. It's a red flag.
like you're losing trust
Yeah.
with that homeowner. And then as you start to not just be the only salesperson in your company,
Yep.
now you have something to measure against. What are you guys shooting for in time? How fast are you trying to get that in the hands of
So
the homeowner?
our like convert. So I'll even start from the call. So the call, we try
Got
not
it.
to let the phone ring more than twice. So first, respond, second ring. From there on, we try to schedule an inspection within 72 hours. Sometimes our schedule gets busy. Okay, they can be a little bit flexible. The proposals were what's the most important. We try to get that out within 48 hours, no more, because after that they lose interest or they go with someone else. Like, yeah,
Yeah.
it's getting pretty. There's a lot of technology out there for software proposal
You should
building
be
now.
able to get it out faster, honestly.
Yeah,
Like
it,
to be honest with you, with the new estimating software, depending
that's
on what CRMs you're using and things like that. But
that's right. Like,
but
yeah,
if you properly preload a lot of things into your estimating software, you could turn these things out really, really
that's
quickly.
right. Like right now, we were pushing hard on Job Nimbus, and they were amazing. Like with the Sumo Core integration, they can just
That's right.
turn them out. Like
Yeah, with
you can just
Sumo Quote, you're able to do estimates very
you
quickly.
can just
Yeah.
turn them out easily. And I think that gap between the old school and the new school is hurting
Mm.
a lot of the old school roofing that
What do
aren't.
you think the difference is? Because like the company your father works for, they sounds like they've been around for a long time.
Yes, yeah,
And and your father's worked for him for a long time.
Yeah.
What differences do you see between the old school and the new school?
Huge difference. So I see a lot of variables. So they have no CRM. It's just all just servers and files still drag and drop, and it's still like to make a picture report you have to crop and put it into like a Microsoft like copy paste kind of thing. When I was there, man, it's still there because I asked some people that still work there. It took me like 30 minutes to an hour to make one inspection report. Like it was ridiculous. But the thing is that they have a different clientele base. They wouldn't need it in the residential base clients. They're very commercial, very industrial. They work with a lot of consultants. So a lot of the work is very old school work, where it's like a close knit of like people who trust each other already, and it's like very basic specs. And it's just they focus on two manufacturers only. That's it, and it's all flat roofs only. So they specialize so much to the point where they don't need all these fancy processes, but they also don't measure anything. So they've been very successful, but it's solely based on just, I think, specializing and being just focused in the industry for such a long time.
Yeah.
Nowadays, it's a little bit different, and especially residential. Residential, you need speed, you need efficiency. Every like if you miss a box of nails, can slow down the whole project. So little things need to be addressed in residential.
Yeah. How have you looked at specialization? I think we talked about this when we chatted, but I think how have you looked at specializing from a residential standpoint? It sounds to me like it was kind of location-based specialization. Was that a thought process for you, or like, hey, I want to, like, our specialization is Pasadena. Like we're gonna everyone in Pasadena they're gonna know that we are the best roofing contractor to use for residential.
Yeah.
Where like the company your father works for, it's like, hey, if you own an industrial building, this is who you should call. Like, did you put any thought into that, or
did I put a lot of thought into it? Because like I didn't want to go against the currents. I didn't want to go against like the big forces against me. So in my area, it's near LA, so traffic is horrible. So I didn't want to take on jobs that are 2 hours away from me, because to do 4 inspections, I wouldn't be able to get to 4 inspections because all the traffic. If I was going to all these different cities. So in Pasadena, we're able to knock out like 4 or 5 inspections in one day and still have time to do other things because we're so close to each other. So one thing was localization, like making sure we're local and grassrooted there. The other thing was like, are we doing commercial or are we doing residential? And I came from a commercial background. I've been doing that for most of my career. But as a small startup, I'm like, okay, the cash flow is going to be an issue. We don't have the money for that big of a general liability with umbrella coverage yet. Like, okay, so we have to start off where we have something that's turn around pretty quickly, cash flowing. So residential was a space for us. We want to get into commercial, but I think there's levels to it. You can't just jump straight into commercial, even though you know the work. You have to forecast yourself a little bit. Like they have different net terms. Like they have, I don't know, much larger job materials that you need. So the supplier might not give you all that credit yet. Things like that. It's that's what we thought about. Traffic,
I think,
and then
traffic is like that's something to think about in major metropolitan markets anywhere, right? Like it's like, oh, how long does it take? Like if you're, it doesn't matter if you're in Miami or in Dallas or in the LA area, like it could be an hour to drive 3 miles, like we're talking about, right? Like it's crazy. So that's a good that local focus helps. I want to explore this conversation about residential to commercial a little bit, and I love what your mindset on it, because it's like I don't know what it feels like. What you're saying is you're trying to earn your stripes going down that route, right? Like it's like you're not trying to just say we're pros, we could take it on. It's more, hey, I know we got to do this. Then we have to take on a little more. Then we could take on a little more. Then we could take on a little more. It's like you're proving yourself. you could do the work. You've done the work in the past,
Yeah.
but it's like you're proving yourself to the suppliers. You're proving yourself to the market. You're proving there's probably infrastructure and people that you need on your team.
That's right.
To be doing those projects. How are you thinking about that?
Yeah. So this commercial structure and residential structure are very different. So like when I first started, I mean, the only thing when you're thinking about is just money, like having money to survive. It's not even money to spend. It's money to survive, like money to pay your guys, money to pay the bills, keep the lights on. So the focus was like cash flow. That's the biggest thing. But then once I started looking at the structure of it, I was like, we don't have all the machinery for commercial. We don't have any professional looking trucks for commercial. We don't have logos. And so I didn't want to take on clients and then let them down. So I wanted to focus on, chewing a little bit at a time, like you said, like building up that kind of like that muscle memory, like making sure we're strong enough to focus on these big jobs, because if you stretch too fast, you're gonna snap like a rubber band. And I didn't want. It's like you said it perfectly. Like I wanted to earn my stripes, even though if you ask a commercial person, hey, would you do residential? They would say, no, that's too hard. And then because the aesthetics of it, dealing with the customer, that customer service, very different commercial. But if you ask a residential, hey, can you do commercial? They'll be like, might be too hard. It's too big. And so it's like there's this gap where we just don't know how to do the other. That's why it seems hard. But when I really look at it, when I structure everything, commercial is easier to produce. But residential is easier to sell. But each one has its own, cons to it, which is residential. Your customer service has to be on point, or else your brand will quickly burn out. So it goes back to branding. A customer service needs to be, everyone's always answering the phone calls, answering any minor thing that a customer wants fixed. You got to go do it. It's no fighting back on it. Like at the end of the day, it's their house and they look at it every day. And, but commercial, I definitely want to get back into more of the commercial realm. I like that environment. It's a B2B environment where you're talking to professionals that know what you're talking about already. And they're able to understand why the system you're using is the system that's the best for them, opposed to thinking emotionally again. It goes back to residential is very emotional. Like, this is my first house ever and I want this color. And they're like, but this is my budget. And I'm like, okay, we'll see what we can do here.
That's right. There is much more emotion in residential for sure. Versus commercial. You said that, I remember when we were talking, I think it was last week or whatever, you said that you started off your first year, and you were like, man, I'm going to go after sub work because again, and it's of that mindset. And I think this is every startup mindset is we need money.
Yeah.
Right. We need cash in the door. Talk about that experience a little bit.
Yeah. So the first year we ended up doing a big amount, I think, for a first year. We ended up doing about 2.8 million the first year. And every conference I would go to, people would be like, that's amazing. You're killing it. But I was like, am I really? And it was until the end of the year that I realized that was not a good year. It was good on paper, but our focus was on getting revenue in. And we decided to go down the subcontracting route for big commercial buildings again. So we we're getting some at bat, which was good, but the margins weren't the best. There's not the best margins as a subcontractor in California if you don't properly negotiate it right. Like if you do negotiate it right, there's definitely win-wins for everybody. But we were just taking on. We were eager. We were hungry, and we were eating a little bit too much than we needed to, and then had a little bit of a repercussion, so it was just that eagerness. And I realized this model is not going to work. We have to brand ourselves. The more you sub for somebody, the less you buy from suppliers because they're buying on their account. So you're not building that reputation with supplier. The more you work for somebody else, the less you can wear your logo and be around people that can see you. You can't put a wrap on your truck if you're being a sub. You have to respect the brand of the person you're working with. So, and you have to understand that game too. You can't be a sub that wants to like, oh, I wanna brand myself within this community. No, like you're working for somebody, be respectful for that person. And that's what we were. But I realized like eventually we want to stand on our own 2 feet, and we started shifting a little bit more back into again to residential, because we saw the barrier to entry there was easier. It's harder to maintain because it's constant selling, constant, without rain, it's constant selling somehow. But yeah, that's where we're at now. I think we've cemented ourselves. I think we're ranked number 1 or 2 in Pasadena now. And that
Nice.
in just a year technically, because a year before was just all subbing out for commercial.
Yeah, I think, and that's a great filter. Here, like some things that I heard there is like that. The first thing is it's the old adage. What is it? Revenue is vanity, profit is sanity,
Yes.
right? Like that's
Yeah.
what the first thing that made me think of, man,
Yeah.
is like, you go and you like you said, you went to this show and you're chatting with someone and they're like, oh yeah, how much? Where are you at? Oh, we're in our first year. We did 2.8, and they're like,
Yeah.
oh wow, man, great job, good. And then you get, and then you look at your bank account at the end of the year and you're like, oh,
Yep.
well, there's nothing left, right? It's those top line numbers don't matter.
They don't.
There's people out there doing, 100 million and not making any money. Like there's, like,
Right. That's right.
so that's the path there.
Mm-hmm.
Other things I heard were around what I would think of as opportunity cost.
Mm. Yeah.
Like there's for people that don't understand the concept of opportunity cost, it's like you're trading something you're doing today for something that could have been done, right? Like, and so what you had said was like, well, we weren't wearing our brand.
Yeah.
I didn't have my wrapped truck in front of that house.
Yeah.
So you're sacrificing,
Yeah.
in a way, right? You're sacrificing future business. You're sacrificing your company,
Yeah.
for that quick buck now, and there's always an opportunity cost when in everything that you do. There's an opportunity cost in hiring. There's an opportunity cost in marketing. There's an opportunity cost in the amount of getting an office or not getting an office. There's an opportunity cost or getting some new equipment or buying an equipter, or like there's opportunity cost in everything, and we're always weighing this opportunity cost.
That's right. I completely agree.
So I love that you said, man, I can't sacrifice the long-term vision that I have for the short-term money.
Yeah.
And that sounds like what happened.
Absolutely. And it's scary because you're like, how can I let go of this without the unknown, not knowing here? And the real answer is you don't. The real answer is you work both at the same time.
Yeah.
Like you're working commercial and you have your guys working. Okay, cool. They're getting paid. We're good. Now I'm out here after hours trying to work on my website. Now I'm after hours trying to work on my Google page. I'm after hours collecting pictures, after hours making sumo quote templates. Like the real answer is you don't just magically stop one thing and do the other thing. The answer is you grab and you put in the work to do both for now. Until
there's like, I know roofing isn't a 9-to-5 job specifically, but there's this like, I heard someone talk about this recently. I think it was Dan Antonelli, who wrote Buy Back Your Time, a great book. If anyone wants, I highly recommend reading that. But he talked about, you have most people have they work 9-to-5.
Yeah.
Right? Most people work 9-to-5.
Yeah.
But they forget that they have 5-to-9 and 5-to-9.
Yeah.
Right. Like, so you could get up at 5 and work until 9 on the other things. You work your 8 hours on your thing, and then you have another 5-to-9.
That's right.
That you have an opportunity to work on.
That's right.
And of course, the challenges if you have family and kids and other obligations and things like that. But if it's how you spend the 5-to-9 that could determine. And I think a lot of times, man, when you're starting out, you need that.
You do.
Like, man, you have to be.
Yeah.
You can't. It takes a lot. Like, I'm here in Minnesota, so it's cold and snowy outside, and you could go out and build a snowman, but like to get that thing right, you got to roll that snowball. You got to get it, and then you get some momentum, and then you get this thing rolling. And
That's right.
but to build that momentum, to get that momentum going, it takes a lot more effort up front. What are your.
Yeah, and it's funny you say that because I have heard that where it's like the hardest thing to a process is to start. Like that takes like 75% of your energy to start, and then little sacrifices that you don't want to do or that seem a little weird that I would do when I first started off was like at the gym, instead of listening to music, I put on a podcast. So like I would encourage people to listen to your podcast, like at a gym or on a long ride. LA, there was so much traffic. Instead of me listening to music all the time, those 2 hours of commute there and back that I used to do, I would put on a podcast. And back then it was, Dave Sullivan back then. It was the only person back then, but now it's like people like you. And I highly encourage people to listen to podcasts on their time in between their time. It's not like you can't work on your side or your business because you're 8 to 5. No, like or 9 to 5. You can work in between on your lunch break while driving to work and driving back.
That's right.
But some people rather pick the comfort of like, no, I want to listen to music, or it's my time to rest right now. Well, okay, but that's the edge you're gonna get over getting out of the slump or getting out of the. I don't call it a subcontracting trap because really good work for subcontractors.
Right.
People can make a really good living, and they do. It's just for us, it wasn't the route for us, and so. That's what I encourage people to do. Like just listen to podcasts when you can.
Yeah.
Little by little, that momentum builds.
I've heard it put as windshield university, right? Like you just, you just throw it on, podcasts, books, all of that type of stuff. Another thing that I've said to a lot of people is, what phone calls are you making, right? Mm-hmm. Like while you're on that drive, if you have 45 minutes or an hour or whatever you're on that drive, do you have a list of insurance agents that you could call? Right? Do you have a list of realtors maybe that you're trying to develop relationships with? Anyone else, right? Like it's how you spend your time. Yeah. That's more important. Cool stuff, man. And it really is impactful. Like you have to put in additional effort in the beginning.
Yeah.
No one knows you, right? Yeah. Like no one knows you. People don't know what you do. People don't know that you can solve a problem for them.
Yeah.
You said one of the things you focused on was getting found online. Let's talk about that a little bit.
Yeah.
I mean, to me, it's a no-brainer, right? Like, yeah, get found online. Like if you are not online, you don't exist in the world to me. Like it doesn't even make sense to me that you don't have a website, that you wouldn't have a Google business profile, like that you don't have social media accounts. Like to me, it blows my mind. And I'm not young. I'm not super young, right? Like I'm not a millennial, I'm not a Gen Z, right? Like, but it's crazy to me. So that was one of the things that it sounds like you focused on.
Yeah, I think it was the single most important thing was be able to be found online. It was so hard at the beginning for me too, because we're engraved into this in our heads by our parents and by the industry, where it's like, don't be don't be talking loud about what you want to do. Like just put your head down and work and just do it. And so like, a lot of my mindset was like, why am I going to advertise what I do? Like, I know I'm good. Like, I'm just going to focus on my work and people will just know me. That's such, like, that's like the old way of thinking, and it keeps you small, unfortunately. Like, I get there's positivity in a good place that it comes from, but no, you have to be out there and telling people how good, like by your action, how good you are, but you have to showcase it. No one's gonna come up to your door and knock on your door and be like, "Hey, I think you're great at roofing, right? Can you do my roof?" Doesn't happen unless they know you. And so
Yeah.
I had to switch that mindset of like, I do have to start posting little by little. Instagram, start with posting on Google, LinkedIn, Facebook, and little by little it started kind of flowing in and like multiplying, like the power of like multiple, like is it the power of, I forget what it's called. It's like from one referral you can get up to three, and from that you can get up to
Mm,
like nine. It's like
yeah.
that right there. It's a
There's an exponential growth
that's right.
curve to it, right? Like it multiplies.
Yeah,
It's not 1 + 1 = 2,
it's not.
right? Like it's a different. It continues to increase and increase, and that's why I feel like companies that have been around for a long time, they don't, like, a lot of times they don't feel like they have to market as much because they have that referral business. But you only have referral business. I always say this, man, David, is who refers you, right? And it's people who you've done good work for.
That's right. Yeah,
In most cases, right? Of course, your cousin's going to refer you, and even if you haven't done their house, like, you know what I
yeah,
mean. But
right. Yeah,
in most cases, it's people that you've done good work for. So
yeah,
you just need to find more people to do good work for,
yeah.
and then that starts to build and starts to build.
Yeah,
What were some of the key learnings? I was talking about this recently with with Joseph Hughes with Contractor Dynamics,
mhm.
and we were talking about skill sets,
Mm,
right? A lot of times as a contractor, you probably didn't have a skill set to build a website or to do SEO or to be a content creator on social media.
yeah,
What did you do to kind of build some of that skill set to know what to do?
yeah. I think you hit it on the head when like Windshield University with podcasts, uh, YouTube University with videos of how to. But I quickly realized like you can spend as much time learning at it from it as much as possible, but you have to actually start doing it, and then you have to start reaching out to for people who have done it already.
Mm,
That you close the gap on time right there. Like you can spend maybe 10 years trying to master it, and maybe you will, but what at what cost? Like you spend so much time learning it yourself instead of finding a professional, maybe getting some consulting work, maybe hiring them to do it. I always encourage people, if you're hiring someone to do a service, learn the service with them. You don't have to
yeah,
master it, but learn to ask the right questions from them. That way you guys can make sure you guys address it properly, because there's people that might not know the industry as much as you do, but that's where you guys have to team up. They know the back end of how to plug in things here and there, but you can tell them like, hey, this is what I think most people or homeowners would like here. So
yeah.
definitely reaching out to someone who's done it before.
Were there
Agency.
did you reach out to like other content creators? Did you reach out to like an agencies? Did you reach out, like, who did you
Yeah,
reach out to get more knowledge? Like, did you
yeah,
say, oh man, I got a friend from high school that like he crushes it. Like, who was it that you kind of,
yeah.
found those connections with?
So I started off with just my local friends, like something free. Like,
Yep.
hey, who knows in my circle, immediate circle, how to make a website, or who knows about Google Pages? And I started asking questions, and we got somewhere. We got the momentum going. And as
Yep.
soon as I knew a little bit about like, oh, I need a domain first. I need to buy a domain before you even make a website. Then I started asking, and I started gravitating towards more of like the website space. And then I was in that
Yep.
space for a little bit. And then I learned like, oh, this guy does really good websites. And then I started moving to him. And then I started learning about a guy making website, not even in the roofing industry, just in general, making websites.
Yeah.
So you start off with your immediate circle, and then you get pulled into more information, and you go down a little rabbit hole of like, oh wow, these are the questions I need. And then you go down to another rabbit hole of like finding, wow, this is the guy in the space that's really good at it. Let me start listening to him. And you start listening to him as much as possible, like listening to you. I know you were marketing. Oh
Yeah.
man, I remember listening to some of your stuff, and I'm like, this is the person I need to listen to. Eventually, sometimes maybe they might not be able to get a hold of you because you're so busy or something,
Yeah,
but at least they hear you and they make terms of it. Like they know the words that are used in that space. So one day they might reach out to hire a coach or hire an agency, but they know enough not to get screwed over because there's always
that's
these.
what I feel, man. Is get to know enough, and that's what Joseph and I were talking about. What Joe and I were talking about, man, is like I did a lot of residential fix and flips between '08 and 2008 and 2013 and on. Like every time I did a project, or not every time, but on all of my beginning projects, I GC'd all my own projects. So on every project, like to start off with, like I was doing tile work on one, I was doing plumbing on another. But I only did it because not to become an expert at it, but I just wanted to know what went into it, man. And like how is this made? How do I know when I hire this drywaller if they're if the bid is within a reasonable limit, right? Like, and then if it's outside of that, I get to ask why,
Yeah,
right? Because I know something. Like I know,
that's right.
oh man, it doesn't seem like that, man. Really, that's what you want to charge per sheet? Like that's crazy. Like, you know what I mean? Like,
Yeah,
what does that include? Is that board through texture, or is that just hanging the board? Like I get to have a conversation, right? Like I get to have an intelligent conversation. So I, always encourage people to do that.
yeah,
One of the things that you also focused on, I want to actually let's talk about social media a little bit because you've developed some traction on social media.
sure. Yeah.
What have been some of the key learnings that you've had in building your social media presence?
I've learned that you kind of sometimes have to be surface level with things, unfortunately, and kind of have to know your audience. Like you would have to be a little bit clickbaity to get traction. Unfortunately, you have to know the generation nowadays. It's like
Mm,
it's very like I only have this amount of time in your face, and before they swipe you, so you have to capture
yeah,
them. That hook. Obviously, the hook is important in an email, in a sales pitch, in a social media post. So I've learned that you do have to change the way you appear sometimes just to make sure you get their attention, and then you can give them some good information. And even then, you can't go too detailed. Like I love these conversations because we can go into detail about things, but
that's right.
social media, if we do things like I have to do very surface level stuff because I want the majority of people to just know enough. I don't want to lose anybody yet. Yeah.
Explain that a little bit more. Like when you're creating a video, so I hear hook and
Yeah.
surface level. Those are the
Yes.
two things. Explain that a little bit more. What like maybe an example of a video you've done recently or something like that.
Well, let me explain a little bit more with the hook. The hook is usually a story, and the stories are all true. That's happened to me, and
Yep.
these stories I always say are very true. And so when I say a story, it kind of gravitates people more because there's a statistics where
Mm,
stories resonate with people. It's like I heard this statistic where like if you're speaking making a speech, if you make a story within the speech, it's like 50% or 55% more likely to be remembered.
remembered. Yeah.
Wow.
Yeah.
So
Yeah.
when I like to talk, I like to talk about my experiences, very genuine place because I've lived through them, and I don't want people to live through those dark times. So it's definitely so you need a hook, you want a story. Um, you also don't want to lose your audience. Don't I don't want to throw around terms of roofing and make it so people they're like I don't know that word, so they skip. It's so weird. Like that's
Yeah.
just the perception. I do that sometimes too when I'm reading a book and
Yeah.
I'm like big word, skip.
Yeah.
It's just my brain sometimes. I don't know. It's just like I'm like I have too much in my head already. I don't want to get more information that I don't need, and I just so I I think it's been really important to have all those components: the hook, the story, being digestible information. Um,
Simple. Keeping it simple. It sounds like is a good idea. Yeah.
the other one that's been helping us a lot is collaboration. I think collaboration is a new currency, and a lot of the coaches try to teach us this. Collaboration, you're introduced to different markets. You're using other people's traffic at that point. You're not spending money on ads. You're not spending money on paying Facebook and Google, although they're amazing. You're working with another person who has another list already, and you're both growing the brand together. You get some clients that might be attracted to that guy, and then you get some back, some audiences.
Yep.
So using other people's traffic, very, very
I
important.
love that, man. Like the collaboration is something that people don't think about a lot. That's a good one.
Yeah.
What social media channels have you focused on? Like what social,
Yeah.
what,
So right now we're doing Instagram, TikTok, YouTube,
okay.
and Facebook. Instagram has been the most, I think, better conversations with people. It's a little bit more professional than TikTok, less professional than LinkedIn. But
Yeah.
that's a sweet spot because people are still able to be free and express themselves without feeling like they're going to be judged too much, like on LinkedIn.
Yeah.
Instagram's been a very, very good sweet spot for branding purposes, like personal branding and then company branding. We want to lean into the LinkedIn world more once we get more into the property management, commercial, HOA stuff.
Yep.
So we're still posting, but only on the company side there. I don't post on my personal brand there too much. But Instagram has been good. TikTok has been good for just getting known, but definitely not to make the best connections. Like I think we met through Instagram, and I was like,
Yeah.
awesome. Like branding, I don't know how to describe it, but branding has changed the trajectory of our life so fast, like in a good way, where people are reaching out, they want to collaborate. People say, "Hey, I've seen you doing this. Like, thank you for sharing this information." And I just take it I've taken it for granted that the information that I have that we've been doing for so many years, I think other people know it. Like it's just a thing. But so it's been a really good experience. People have came and tried to partner up with us. If you can spend some money on something, I would say on branding. Branding and marketing is the fuel to the business. Yeah.
It's amazing what happens. I say it this way, David. It's amazing what happens when you put yourself out there.
Yeah.
It's just amazing because so few people do.
Yeah.
So few people take that risk, risking, people talking funny about them online or something, risking having a video that people think, you know what I mean? Risking other people's opinions of yourself. Yeah. Another thing that you guys have done really well, and I remember you telling me that you guys really focused on, and it's something that I feel everyone needs to focus on, and that's reviews. Mm-hmm. What was your thought process on reviews initially? And then what was the execution? How did you get to 200 plus reviews as quickly as you did? Yeah.
So the mindset was you have to be Googleable. You have to be found. You have to be able to, someone can go into Google, put your name in, you have to be found. If not, then you're already sketchy. You're already you're thrown into the bin where all the people that they're constantly filtering. I think we're in a day and age where people have so much power at their fingertips, so much knowledge at their fingertips that they can quickly go and try to learn their shingles themselves or learn who the roofer is or what the roofing company is. And so you need to be able to be found. And you have to stop hiding. Like at first, I wanted to hide who I was. My company, I wanted to work. And so when I first started doing the branding side, you're right. Like people just talk. They're gonna post some stuff out there, and people are just gonna talk, and that's part of it. So you need to be comfortable enough to be found on Google. The next step was, how can I showcase how good we are? And so there's different metrics on Google that can help you rank higher. Of course, like SEO, constantly posting on Google updates. So posting pictures, posting status updates. So we do that daily, twice a day. Post pictures, do statuses. We also started asking of clients that we worked with in the past that didn't leave us a review. We're like, what's the list here? Like, let's go through our CRM. Let's print out a list of people that we might not have asked. We didn't ask for the review. So let's print it out and let's go ask them again. And regardless if they left a review or not, we would send them a gift basket or like an Amazon gift card just to say thank you for taking time to even consider reading the email or like reading the postcard. And then that is weird because even though they wouldn't leave it, they would refer us out. So at least we got something out of it,
That's right.
And so we try to make it as easy as possible to get a Google review and a Yelp review by doing hyperlinks and putting it into an email campaign or putting it into like a text message, easy for them to just click and open. So it's that removing the friction to being able to do it that allows us to scale so fast. Because the execution is one thing, which I think a lot of roofers have, but it's like the follow up. And then how do you follow up? Making it easy for them. If you tell them, hey, can you just go give me a Google review? And then they have to go look for your exact name on Google. They have to figure out where the Google link thing is. Sometimes it's very hidden, to be honest. Sometimes it's hard to find the Google review clicking button. So you have to make it easy for them to just be like, yeah, of course, thank you. Like, let me do it right now. That's what helped us scale so fast. The frictionless ability to get a Google review.
And then how have you felt that change? Has that changed the conversations that you have with people at the kitchen table?
Absolutely. That's like our primary selling point, because at that point you're not there's always going to be a price objection anywhere. But now we have some sort of backing. Like we're not going to be the cheapest, but we do good work, and here's the amount of people backing us up. Here are the testimonials. That's apart from the reviews. Here's the testimonials, video testimonials of everybody that's been happy. And on top of that, we use something called Project Map It. It tells you exactly all the locations you've done in their area. So I send them a map, and they see all their neighbors have done the roofs with us. Yeah. And then they're like, oh, wow, like kind of like you don't want to miss out kind of thing. Like, oh, everyone's doing it. So maybe this is the route. So the conversation has shifted from, oh, well, I don't know if I can trust you. That used to be an objection at first. We're like, I don't know. We got a beer company here kind of wanting to bid to, it might be a little too expensive, but we love your guys' work. We've seen you on Instagram. We've seen your reviews, but now it's just a price objection, right? But which we can work with. We can see where we can come up to either payment plans or figure out middle ground somehow where we can bring in more value to justify. But that objection is easier to handle than we don't know if we can trust you. Like, we don't know your type of work or your where you're located and all this. Like, so it's helped us scale in a healthy way.
Yeah, that's awesome. What do you think the best advice you can give to overcome the challenges that you faced over through this journey to the audience?
Yeah. It all depends on what part of the journey they're on.
Yeah.
But I think the biggest hurdle for us were behind the scenes on getting your workers' comp in order, getting your insurance in order, being able to, I guess, properly submit all the documents you need to be vetted on like Google. Even Google verified, you need to submit a couple of documents. So like, all that backend stuff took me away from the work itself. And I was a roofer by trade. So like I was in deep water with no one to talk to. So my biggest takeaway was find someone who's done it before and find people like you that you're speaking to all these people and you're teaching these people to kind of grow with it. You're definitely not alone. That was like one of the mindsets that was kind of holding me back, saying like, why did I even start my own business to begin with? Like, did I make a mistake? Should I just be, go back and be project manager or something? It was that feeling of like, I'm going alone through this. But no, like if you zoom out, you see hundreds of other people going through this exact same thing. All you need to do is come together and talk to them and collaborate with them. And you'll find the answer way quicker. It goes back to close that gap from information to not knowing, and you'll be able to execute and create that momentum to go forward. It goes back to just how much activity can you do? Let's do these little increments to grow.
Awesome.
So that's what I would say.
Awesome, David, man. Thanks for your time today. This has been another episode of the Roofing Success Podcast. Thank you for tuning into the Roofing Success Podcast. For more valuable content, visit roofingsuccesspodcast.com. While there, check out our sponsors for exclusive offers, shop for merchandise, and sign up for our newsletter for industry updates and tips. Also, join the Roofing Success Facebook group to connect with other professionals and stay updated on the latest trends. If you enjoyed this episode, please subscribe, like, share, and leave a comment. Your support helps us continue to bring you top industry insights. The website link is in the description. Thanks for listening.